Welcome to another
Yeah.
episode of On VJ's Playlist, and I am joined today by the maestro himself, Mr. Viveick Rajagopalan. So thank you so much for doing this. It's an absolute honor for me personally because I have been hearing stories about your journey and about your craft for 6 years altogether. And to finally get the opportunity to meet you, even though if it's an e-meet, but just the opportunity to interact with you is amazing. So I'm very thankful to you, sir, for giving me this
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure, sir. Um, so for those of our viewers who are watching this, sir and a couple of our best Indian hip hop talents of the country have gotten together to release their brand new album Ta Dhom. So before we get started, before we start talking about it, first of all, on behalf of an entire fraternity of audience members, I'd like to thank you personally because um, you are the wind beneath the wings of so many enterprising hip hop artists out there. The fact that we have had the opportunity to see some amazing rappers in India 91. First of all, congratulations on all the reception and all um, the warmth that you have received for that track, which is part of the Gully
Thank
Boys
you.
soundtrack. Sister, firstly, before we get started about
Before
that,
anything, you just call me Vivek, yeah?
okay, okay. So with Viveick's, as per Viveick's insistence, I'm going to address him by his first name. So
Yes,
Viveick,
please. Thank you.
so Viveick, before we speak about Ta Dhom and before we also dwell a little bit into your journey, I want to first ask you, how did this happen that a musician of your caliber, a Carnatic maestro, someone with aesthetics and influences and preferences completely opposite to what hip hop artists do. How did you know that this is where you wanted to put your strength and your merit behind?
Um, I think the one main thing that has something that's haunted me always, and I keep trying to fight that as well, is this whole idea of genres. Different genres that we talk about in music. Um, I know some of what I say might be repetitive or might be spiritual or whatever in nature, but I'm still going to say it since you've asked me that question. That the whole idea of genres, right? Whether it's blues, rock, everything, it serves the purpose of selling, right? So when I want to, so there are two perspectives here. One is the artistic perspective. One is a perspective of when you go into the market, what the label sees a product as. So from the label and from the audience perspective, for to pick something, a genre really helps. But that's where it stops. Also,
Yeah,
for an artist to think about genres as a process of creation is actually deterrent to their own journey, because what happens is you start wearing those attire around you. It's like saying when you become the vice president of a company, you become the vice president. You almost have that seat all the time, right? So when you become if you learn mridangam, because you've played classical music or Carnatic music, um, there is a certain uh, thing that you carry again with you. For me, none of this actually mattered, because when I grew up, I used to jam with, with my dear friends Loy, Alan, JD. Very early on, I started playing with Lucky Ali. So whether it was playing rock or whether it was jamming with people of all kinds of music, it was all done very organically. There was no, oh, so that genre, this genre, right? So that kind of thing was never there. But at the same time, like I said, it also became a big problem, because very soon Carnatic fraternity thought that I'm not available for Carnatic music. When I started composing music, right, for ads, and when the minute people get to know that I'm a mridangam player, they start thinking that I do only South stuff, right? So I've always had this, like I said, I've been a victim to this whole stereotyping business also. So when I was going through this journey or when I met these boys the first time, it was actually, I mean, I was actually also, as an artistic journey, I was going through a very tough time, because what happens is I have not done too many things adhering to trends as
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you don't adhere to certain trends, not because you have any problem with it,
Yeah.
it's just because you're not naturally inclined towards it,
Mm.
right? So when you're not, and I can't force myself, like I told you
Right.
sometime back, I can't force myself to talk in a certain way. So, so because I couldn't do that, there was a long patch, of wondering what exactly should I be doing. And I had already released. I mean, you're talking about 2016, but I released my first album in 2009, and that
Right.
album I was working with on for the last 7 to 8 years before that. So I started writing music in 2002, 2003, when there was nothing called social media or anything, even in the birth stage of it, right?
Yeah.
So, and in fact, there was no word called independent music
Yeah.
when I was sitting at home and working,
Yeah.
right? It was just, it's like asking a painter, oh, what are you painting? I'm an independent painter. No painter says that, right? So it's just that we've coined this word for anything that's non-commercial or non-Bollywood,
Yeah.
which is fine. So I was dealing with this whole thing, and there is also a Bombay. I mean, there are great things about Bombay, but there's also another big problem about Bombay, which is sort of being in the same circle of people that you hang around with, right?
Yes. I agree.
And that doesn't allow others to come inside. It's almost uh, um, like a ghetto culture, right? Where you just become this group, and then you need to be a certain way or talk a certain way, and then you'll become a part of that thing. So for me, when I started interacting with these rappers, it was a completely, free spirited zone. They just knew me for some of the music that I'd done, which was great, right? I'm very happy that they didn't come with this baggage of, oh, Carnatic musician. They knew I play mridangam, and they knew some common friends, and that was great. So that was a starting point. And my intention, my first conversation with them was about saying, do you want to understand and better your rapping skills? So it is not about saying, hey, you know what, there is this amazing art form and it's very deep, and you have to come and learn this, and you have to come and touch my feet every week before class. So none of those conversations happened. It was just saying, do you want to do what you do better? That was the crux of it. And that's what we started doing. I mean, it was not a marketing pitch or anything like that. To be true to it, that's what the process was. To say, how do you understand rhythm, meter, all these things better, so that you can become. Do you want it, right? So those conversations is what I would do in every Sunday morning. Some of them dropped off because they realized it needs a lot of commitment. The only thing I tell these people is it's wealth that's being shared. So nothing was done casually too. As it might sound earlier, because I sort of maybe mentioned about not doing the typical Guru Shishya thing. But that being said, I did not take it lightly either. As in the fact that this was wealth that is not just mine. It's a very rooted ancient art form, right? So it's almost like saying, when your grandmother, when your great grandmother, when there is wealth that's passed on, it could be in the form of material wealth, or it could be in the form of knowledge wealth, right? You hold on to that, right? And that you respect that wealth. So I wanted to inculcate that emotion in them, saying respect what you sort of have, and that's where it all began. And of course, in the first year, as you know, the first experiment was, all these things actually came out from classes. It was just saying, okay, let's try this today. Okay, now that you know this, why don't you write something? Okay, now how do we make a track out of it? That's where the journey of teaching and sharing. So there are many layers to this. I might have concised everything in this short 5 minutes. There are many layers to this, because the education part of music is also, again, there's a boundary there, right? So, which is why I chose gardens, because I didn't want any boundaries. I wanted to choose an open space where one is not intimidated by anything. It's just an open space to do it. So, and the fact that music education should be available to the talented, to the ones who want, is something that I've believed in, and I continue to believe, because the product is there. I mean, it's for there to see, for everybody to see that if it is available, this is the outcome, right? So I can do this just by, I don't run an NGO or nothing. It's just by myself. And I'm sure if there are multiple people who come together, this can change a lot. And then, all this complaint about, there is no audience and all that. I think I don't personally believe in that. I think today I can say that some of these kids actually come for class. Like two of them came for Sid Sriram's classical concert, right? So now they sort of enjoy it. Now those are the things that I think we feel that needs to be done very casually without making too much about it, right? For me, this is all very normal and real. That's how it should be for me. I don't like to take the burden of doing anything. I'm going to make this social statement about what I did and all. That's all. I don't care about all that. For me, music is a power. Music has the power. All I have to do is just do it, right? If there is a medicine somebody gives you, yes, you do feel grateful to the guy who's given it to you. But at the end of it, the medicine is powerful. You just need to believe in it. There's no point believing in the doctor without believing in the medicine, right? So that belief has to be there from the doctor to the guy who's receiving it. That belief is in the medicine that I'm getting. So, and the trust is with the doctor, right? So there are two different things here. To say that when that I trust this guy who's going to give me this with all his love. So then you sort of take it, saying, yeah, okay, and I believe in this so much because he also believes in it. That it has power in it, right? It can add on skill sets to my knowledge. So those are the things that I sort of focus on and concentrate on.
Well said, sir. I think this one answer of yours contains so many anecdotes for us to, it's very insightful and kind of gives me an idea of how your journey has been. So you spoke about stereotypes that you had to face when you took down this path. Yes, Bombay as a city has a particular lens of viewing us as a community, but do you think so? That's also partially because as good Tambram kids, the natural expectation out of us is that, if we have learned an Indian classical instrument or something, then we will go down that route. Then for us, our musical outings will be all about maybe performing at the Shanmugananda Hall, to classical recitals and all. Do you think?
I get that completely. I mean, there's nothing. I've done those things as well, right? I was also a product of Shanmugananda. My teacher, Guru Shri T.S. Nandakumar, was teaching there. Yeah. So I've also studied there and I've done concerts there. Yeah. But that's not what I'm saying. What I mean is, like, let's say if I learned keyboards or guitars, right? Immediately you are accepted as a composer without even realizing that learning a keyboard is an instrument, and yes, it gives you certain skill sets. That doesn't necessarily mean you become a composer/producer.
Right.
Right? That's where I'm saying where the stereotype for me in the other side of the world started, where the minute they get to know, till they didn't know it was okay. My first feature film, actually the one I didn't know that I was a mridangam player.
Oh.
I in fact wrote Bhojpuri, like there's a lori in Bhojpuri in that. So he got to know only later. Okay. But for instance, otherwise, when it comes to music production or music composition, there is a certain set of things that people instantly connect with. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in that. I'm not saying that keyboard players are not producers. Right. All I'm saying is it's not a 2+2 equation where you say just because you learn keyboard or guitar that it's understood that you are a composer/producer.
Right.
Whereas in my case, because I'm a mridangam player, it took I had to prove myself every time if they get to know, right? So it was a very strange sort of thing that I had to battle in both worlds. I've actually studied, like I did my Trinity College exams, I did Western classical theory. I even studied jazz theory from a teacher here in Juhu. So it's not like I even studied sound engineering.
Right.
So from an education perspective, it's not like I woke up one day and I said this. I have educated myself in that I mean, I did produce my own albums as well, like in the sense arranging it, putting all the right. So all those things I've done myself. So, but like my earlier release was a track called Raat Subha Siye,
Yes.
which is a lyrically. It's got nothing to do with any of the rhythmical
Yes.
things, and that track was 15 years back, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
then
okay.
suddenly, yeah, I composed it 15 years, and I actually put it out purposely because I was thinking this is now we are living in a time where Instagram videos, if I'm putting Konakol, now they're thinking I'm a Konakol artist. And I'm
Right.
thinking, wow, this is getting worse now, So it's so when I put that out, it did shake up a few years saying, oh, like how, right? So, but that's the thing I don't understand because if you're a musician
Hmm.
and if you do have certain things which you've been doing for, I mean, it has been more than 20 years since I've been composing and producing now.
Right. Very interesting, sir, because 2 decades of transformation, 2 decades of evolution, and you being bang in the center of all of it. The fact that you said that it took you so long to put out a track, which I think it was just last year that you released a set song, and it's taken you 15 years to put that out. So, sir, at what point did you reach a place of conviction personally, where you were sure that okay, now is the time I should put this out?
Well, the pandemic sort of hit, and we were stranded at home, and I thought, okay, let me just look at all my old work and things that I've worked on very passionately, but I want to complete them. So that's when I sort of took my files out and I started finishing that, and I said, okay, so let's just get this. I've had so many people, and after that song came out, saying, "Oh, this is cinematic." I said, and I should tell them I knew, and I was waiting for a day when maybe it gets in a film. But then I said, okay, I can't keep waiting also.
Right.
And 15 years was a long enough time. In fact, it was done for a film. The track was done as a pitch for a film. It was approved just halfway through where I was supposed to get an advance. Those guys disappeared. So,
Oh,
but that said, the song stayed with me. Yeah. So there's been a string of, let's say, games with luck that I've had. But otherwise, like even this Hindi film, I've done it 5 years back. It was done before Gully Boy,
hmm.
but it stuck. For some reason, it's not released.
Right.
And hopefully, I'll see when it gets when it sees the light someday. Because I've done
Light
a
up.
completely different thing over there. I've composed 3 songs, the entire background score, everything in that movie.
So since you spoke of Konakol, for our viewers who do not know about it, I believe here is where you merge your Mridangam influences with the hip hop aesthetics. So for our viewers who are not familiar with the concept, would you like to just quickly explain what is Konakol all about?
Yeah, so Konakol is a very ancient vocal percussion uh, language. So, I mean, I think it's one of the most, let's say, effective language of, communicating, understanding. There is grammar, and like Sanskrit, there's numbers also associated, right? So it allows you to. There's a very clear communicative language that you can have. It allows you to decode mathematical ideas. It makes you understand symmetry beautifully. So it's a very effective language to explore for any musician. In fact, it's a great tool if you have some sense of music and if you just want to improve your speech. It's great because it accesses all your tongue muscles in a very interesting way, and if so that way it's a very very effective language that has been around for so many thousands of years now.
Thanks so much on that, sir. Coming to Ta Dhom, your latest work, which you have composed and conceptualized with a bunch of enterprising rappers in our Indian hip hop community today. Possibly one of the last works that MC Tod Fod, the late rapper, is a part of. So first of all, sir, I'm sure for you also personally, it's an extremely tragic loss, something that cannot be comprehended yet. Uh, if I have to only ask you, what is the fondest memory that you can recall of your association with MC Tod Ford? Because everyone I've spoken to only has the nicest things to say about the young man. So sir, any fond memory of him that you can share with us?
Well, he was nasty. Like his name, like his name, he's given me, he's troubled me a lot. Uh, he was one of the guys whom, what do you say? Like how much ever he annoys you, you still love him. He was one of those
Oh.
guys. You know,
This is this is a very, very teacher thing now that you just happened to say. This is such a
no,
teacher
I
thing to
mean,
say.
I've known him since he was 17 or 16 years old, right? So for me, I've seen him grow up in the last 6, 7 years. So
Right.
I have those memories of him, and yeah, like I said, I just feel for me he's around all the time.
Yeah.
All these kids, whether it was Tod Fod, Mawali, Kalai,
Yeah.
um, like 2021, I wish they they don't almost, like, I would say, you know what, I know how difficult it is to put out good stuff, because and you don't get noticed very soon. I've seen that. I mean, my
Yeah.
first, I've not played, for instance, I've not played any of the NH7 festivals as an artist. I've collaborated, but not as a main artist.
Right.
But I played Woman. I've played bigger festivals where we got invited for the music of it.
Yeah.
But I really wish that these kids get noticed way more, than what they are today, because they write so well. At 2021, their capability, if you push them, is amazing. The stuff that they can come up with. If you need to push them, you
Yeah.
know, but they have the potential. That's what I mean. When they have the potential, it is for us to say, how can we bring this out in the best possible way. So, for instance, a track like Dhwani Todford took like 5 months to write, but he wanted to do it. He
Yeah.
wanted to read about it.
Yeah.
And the poetry that they've written, which is why, in fact, I don't know if you've seen this book, but I released this little book, which was in the first time where all the lyrics are printed in this book,
No,
you
sir,
know,
I haven't had
and
the opportunity to read it, but I will definitely get my hands on it.
I
For our
released this book.
viewers, sorry, sir, to cut you there, but for our viewers are watching who wish to avail a copy of that,
Yeah, they can just
booklet.
DM me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Everybody watching this episode right now, if you wish to avail this booklet of songwriting from Viveick sir, you can please drop him a DM on Instagram.
So that's what I sort of have, I would like to sort of remember. In fact, even when he passed away, and when they invited me for the prayer meeting, all I did was read out his work, because for me, that is what needs to be celebrated, a lot more than the person.
Yeah,
For me, they are two different journeys. The person has gone, he's left, and of course, for people who are close to him, it's a huge, huge, huge loss. There's no
yes,
way that one can, um, you know, it's going to take time. It's going to take really a lot of time to
yeah,
sort of come over it. But yeah, but otherwise, I'd urge all the listeners to. I know it's a little bit of effort, because what happens is people get pounded with the most marketed songs, but do search for music as well, like in the good old days. Ask people what is the music that they're listening to, because
yeah,
now we only listen to what's being thrown at us, right,
yes.
by algorithms. But I would really urge people to talk to friends and say, hey, what are you listening to these days? Maybe your musician friends or whatever in your community, and I'm sure you'll find something more interesting than anything that's just being thrown to you by algorithms.
So speaking of the dome, um, how much of your own personal experiences and lived-in experiences have you tried to share through this album? And what is it that listeners can look forward to? What is it that what is it different that you have done in the album that's completely unique from everything else that you have composed and produced in the past?
There are several layers to this, but for instance, the obvious thing we all know as the rappers rapping in languages or whatever, and the Konakol part is heard.
Yeah,
But another very important thing is the mridangam, the way I've used it, which is almost, sort of honoring the sound of the instrument, right at the center of it, which is what shines in the entire album. And for me, that is sort of something where I feel that a lot of Indian instruments can actually be used to create amazing beats. Yes, we use the dole, everybody knows that. But then what happens is there is this trend of also quickly taking what the West does in the way we produce beats, right?
Yeah.
But I personally feel this is especially for music producers that I'm saying this, that you can look at ethnic sounds as well around you and not treat them just as a percussion instrument,
Yeah.
uh, but also see how can you make it sound big. So the mridangam is actually the center of it in all. I mean, it's the spine of the entire project in that sense, where I work a lot on making the sound of the mridangam sort of, push the entire thing. If you remove the mridangam in it, actually there you'll see what I mean. It's one of those things where if the flavor of a dish, the entire dish is there, but you remove something and you realize, oh no, that's such an important
Oh, yes.
thing. So that way, the mridangam is sort of the soul of the entire Ta Dhom project in that sense, which is, I think, which is a stamp that I wanted to have in this particular sound. Maybe in the next project I might do something else, but for this one, I was very sure that that's the story, that's the script, this is a soul, these are the things that I need to do around it. In fact, even when I produced the album, I was very careful about doing not doing too much,
Right.
so I had to wear, let's say, the producer's hat and remove the mridangam player's hat to make sure that I play minimal and I'm not getting too excited to get my Carnatic chops in it.
Right.
So that way, yes. And I'm saying the mridangam again and again because again that's something I've right from college days I've sort of suffered where they'll say, "Oh, is it like a dhol?" And I would say, "No, it's a mridangam."
Yeah.
And so a dhol is a dhol, but and a mridangam is a mridangam. So it's one of those things where they're two different things. In fact, I was so glad that even in Gully Boy, I was allowed to use it. So again, that's the stamp in that track as well, and the India 91 track.
So just to add to that, do you think a huge you know contributing factor to this can also be that suddenly you could say as a country, the country has now woken up to the ethnicity and the influence that South Indian pop culture is kind of having now. Suddenly it's the huge South Indian takeover, whether it's your OTT, whether it's films, and now with music. Do you feel more confident, sir, that you can actually put out your Carnatic influences without necessarily, refraining, being restrained about it or being apologetic about it? You think you somewhere you're more confident now to actually
I have
project
never
your
been
ethnicity?
apologetic about any of this, not today, but even before.
Yeah.
And all these, talks on the films, this, that, I'm not sure. I think this is all, um, yeah, this is all just a lot of bubble. I don't get drawn towards it, neither do I like to, because I think at the core, we have to see it. We have
Yeah.
to see the difference and then probably we can. Best is always that the change has to happen. Otherwise,
Right.
the talks are all just around some, like I said, some PR driven, some fancy stuff that happens.
Right.
But I have never bothered about being apologetic about it ever.
Yeah. Well, sir, I think it's you are a part of that very chosen tribe that continues to thrive on his or her own identity, and so it's commendable how you have managed to keep that afloat for 2 decades. But sir, I also want to come back to the whole evolving equation of you as a mentor and a guide to these young enterprising artists. So with you, you're carrying 2 decades of experience, and these are young kids. So often, while you are mentoring them, while you're tutoring them, and helping them nurture their hidden potential, uh, I'm sure in the process of that, there are certain things about these young artists that even you are learning, as you go along this process. So, sir, how is that balance, struck between being the tutor and being the learner also?
Um, it's again, like I said, it's because it's not a very conventional relationship. It's always it's a great balance for me because as much as they say that they fear and all that is there, but I know it's all at just some level. They do their own thing at the end of the day, and the fact that, but what I love, to be honest, is that there is amongst them there's just so much love, right? and that's what fascinates me. And I've been, because of the music, not because of the person that I am, because they don't know me as a person, there's so many facets to an individual, right? So but I feel because of the music, I also partake in that love a little bit. They share that love with me as well. The community shares that love with me as well, and I feel grateful for that. And I think those are the things I watch and I actually learn, because it sort of also takes me back to a very childlike state of mind, right? You So all those things are something that I keep learning. Otherwise, half the time I'm that hostel dean doing things, walking around with a stick with them.
But I'm sure, sir, it's all worth it, because I think every artist who has collaborated with you has only um, seen their best works being put out there, and the reason why they enjoy the fame and the popularity that they have of is because of I think what you have brought to their journeys, what you have brought to the table in mentoring them,
No,
in
see, for
guiding
me,
them.
like I said, it has to go way beyond all this. This is all just a manifestation of a journey. When these
Right.
kids, like for instance, one of my students is now teaching. Now that's beautiful for me personally, right? So being an artist is one thing, but then there's a daily life of an artist. There's a journey beyond all this. When
Yeah.
you see a banyan tree, you don't know where the roots are. So although for me, all this is, I'm doing it as a project, but I want eventually this to grow in another manner. That's at least my, if you may call it selfish motive, possible. But at the end of the day, I want them to have skill sets which they can not just spread but also earn money doing it, right? So I try to balance the practical but with the at least after 2 decades I have started learning that, because I've been very impractical and irrational otherwise. So I keep telling them we need to do a balancing act. But individually, it's for me, Ta Dhom Project is something which needs to go beyond any of this.
Right. Right. So, sir, actually, a few cynics uh, kind of argued that, post the whole gully boy phenomenon, once it kind of settled in, suddenly hip hop became a trend where everyone started riding along the wave. They were, it definitely brought out the emergence and the visibility to more, artists out there. But do you think so somewhere that trend also became a farce? It became a fad because everyone was so quick to jump onto it. They, again, all the marketing, all the energies were pushed to, um, you know, it was all pushed out there in the, to the forefront. And then suddenly, I think, from what I saw was artists were quick enough to even realize that. And now suddenly everyone's just taken the switch back and they're like, okay, great, if mainstream happens, well and good. But I think we would like to do the kind of music that we are also doing and we believe in.
Yeah, so like I said, jumping onto a bandwagon of trend is one whole thing altogether. And whether we like it or not, people who believe in it will stay in it. People who have done it even before anything started will stay in it. So I think that's always been the case. I mean, if somebody released a rock on, doesn't mean rock is going to be trending, right? In fact, I think the only thing that I would give full marks to Zoya for doing this in the way she did it was there were no mainstream composers at all in the entire film, right? The entire list of people of
Yeah,
almost 19 or 20 odd artists were all from outside the so-called otherwise mainstream domain, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, uh, and having said that, is those guys only are continuing even after that? Anything that happens as a trend is not going to last too long.
Yes, that's that.
So you have a divine who's continuing. You have, a Raja Kumari who's continuing. You have all
Hmm.
the every person you see on that film, are continuing to do because they were anyways doing it before. So it's not
Right,
like they needed a film to do it.
that's
So
right.
I think that sort of is where I would say in any form of music that it'll the true test is that it'll stay for as long as it's meant to stay.
Well, all I can say, sir, to conclude our interview is it's only onwards and upwards, and I don't think so. I'm at the position to say that. All I can say is that may there be more MC Tod Fods, may there be more MC Azads and the likes of Swadesi, and may they be blessed with mentors and tutors like you. Thank you so much, sir,
Thank
for
you so much.
giving me your time and for giving so many wonderful talents out there the wings to grow and just letting them be. Thank you so much once again for talking to us
Thank you.
on.
Thank you.
Yes.